Thanks for your attendance. We have some very positive crime statistics that we want to pass along to you in our community, and then a couple other items of interest, I think, for the community going forward, and a couple of related items. You've all been provided the complete detailed by beat report electronically as well. Happy to take questions at the end related to any of that information. And as we always remind folks, that beat report by beat is available on our website on a monthly basis, so people can go there and review crime data on a routine basis if they are so interested and can see what's happening in their local beat area. Overall, just to go over, you'll see this in the numbers coming up, but we had a 10% decrease in Class A crimes. That's the most common amount of crimes and the most violent or significant crimes that are reported, not only to the state of North Dakota, but then to the FBI. That's part of the National Incident-Based Reporting System that we and other agencies are a part of. So that 10% decrease overall follows a 2024 decrease, or I'm sorry, 2024 decrease of 6.8%, so nearly 17% decrease over a 2-year period in terms of crime, reported crime. Our top 5 categories for calls for service are listed here. You'll see that our total calls for service are up 5%. A lot of it attributable to the traffic stops and the implementation full-time of our traffic safety team. Our overall crime stats, you'll see on this slide, not only the percentage decrease, but I think it's important for people to see the amount of fewer crimes to actually put the percentage into context. So in 2025 compared to 2024, we had 52 fewer rape cases, 83 fewer aggravated assaults, 298 fewer burglaries, 25 fewer motor vehicle thefts, 2 fewer murders or non-negligent manslaughters, 24 fewer robberies. Those are significant violent crime reductions that are important for community safety and things that people are most often concerned with. The 2 crimes that we see a large increase in across the city are shoplifting, and we've talked about that several times before, and if you go into our beat reports, I'll actually even identify some of the locations where we're seeing a large amount of shoplifting. And if we get to a point where we have more resources in the department, we would maybe be able to work with some of those stores on those issues. But we have a good working relationship at this juncture. It's a crime that's quite frequent. And I think the other piece of it is, I think following some of the prosecutions on these cases and what's happened with some of the habitual offenders, it would be another area to look at from shoplifting perspective. Theft of motor vehicle parts and accessories is also up in a very large percentage. We had a pretty large chop shop operation and investigation last year that unfortunately didn't result in any criminal charges in the state's attorney's office, although I think there was significant evidence there that should have been pursued. I'm happy to provide that information to you after the press conference as well, but that's an area that we're seeing an uptick in crime is also. Just looking again at our Group A offenses, and in a slice of that, you can see the reductions, 16.8% since 2023. When you look at the assaults, aggravated and simple, you'll also see that on the left, we break that down a little bit. So 50% of the aggravated assaults were domestic violence related. So that's a known person, a known family member committing those crimes. That's a significant amount of those crimes. And the same with simple assaults, where 55% of those are domestic violence related. And so those are, again, known actors, and the outcomes of those crimes are largely dependent on victim cooperation and what happens in the state's attorney's office. This is a 24 to 25 comparable. So the tall bars in the back are your calls for service, 24 to 25. The lower bars in the front are your offenses, 24 to 25. And so what you'll see is, just looking at the top, calls for service, every beat except for beat 3 had an increase in calls for service. And looking at the crime, the front numbers, every beat except beat 4 had a reduction. And so the other thing to take away from this, I've heard some conversation about beat areas and beat size, is that if you look at these, we try to do our very best to compare not just calls, but active crimes, reported crime, in identifying the geographic boundaries for these particular beat areas. And so fairly equitable across the board. Beat 5 has probably the largest difference in terms of their calls for service. And they've got also the most reported crime, even though they had a reduction in crime. But the rest of them are fairly proportional, even though geographically the areas are much larger. If you look at 4 and 5 on the southeast and southwest side of the city, very big. Beat 1 also very big. And then 3 and then 2, our downtown area is the smallest beat, but has actually more calls for service and almost identical reported crime to some of the other beats. Beat 3 in particular, and beat 4 in terms of crime. So again, I think the geographic areas are good comparables based on that data. It's just kind of a additional way to look at some of this. On the left are most of your property crimes: burglary, motor vehicle theft, theft from vehicle, and shoplifting by beat. And then your more violent crimes on the right. There's another comparable of that data. Shootings and shots fired, and I'll remind you that these weren't segregated in any way by the department prior to my tenure. And so since we've been tracking these since 2021, we have had the fewest amount of shootings, the fewest amount of shooting victims, and the fewest amount of shots fired in the city of Fargo in the 5 years that we've been tracking that data individually. Prior to 2021, that data would be absorbed into the aggravated assault tab that you saw earlier. So because we know that they're important to our community, and they're also important investigative precursors, because sometimes these shootings lead to more violent crime, homicides, etc., we wanted our department to focus in on that, and we also want our community to be aware of that. So if you go back to the report that's online, you'll see the preceding dates, and you can double check that data. But shootings, victims, and the shots fired are the lowest they've been since we started tracking in 2021. And then just a reminder on the definitions again. Shootings means that someone was shot with a firearm, a bullet. If they're killed, it counts as a murder. It doesn't count as a shooting. If they are not killed, it counts as a shooting. Shots fired is where a firearm is fired off, whether it's in the air, whether it's at someone or at a house or at a vehicle. Those are shots fired investigations, which we also segregate out, not only so that people have context, but so that we can focus on these investigations, because again, some of that leads to additional criminal activity. And so again, we're seeing a very good reduction in those incidents as well. And I think that's due a lot to our community and our attention to these details in these particular crimes. This last slide has to do with our desk officer reporting system, our online reporting system. I've heard some discussion about the value of this, whether or not it's valuable. So we actually have a tracker with this particular efficiency, which we brought online in about March of 2022, because again, our department is inundated with calls for service, and we have not had any significant increase in our sworn positions. You've heard me talk about that before. We still have a significant deficit in our sworn authorized strength. We were able to add 9 positions this year, just this month, or last month rather, 2026, to our sworn strength, and we've got an academy now, and we'll have another academy in July. But we're below where we need to be in terms of a manageable percentage rate of 1.6 sworn persons per 1,000. But looking at this online reporting system, which not only allows or provides an easier way for folks to report certain crimes that do not require an officer at your house, for them to be able to report that so we don't miss those crimes, and we can connect them through our intelligence and analysis unit to other criminal activity. It's an enhancer that way, but it's also a cost savings. And so if you look at the data, you'll see how many hours, about 3.5 years of data, 12,000 hours, a little over 3,000 each year, which is 1.5 full-time sworn positions each year that this online reporting system has saved, at about just under $700,000. So it's been extremely valuable. It's also an efficiency for a lot of folks, especially with our newer generation folks that are out there who are very attuned to using an online system to report things. People are able to upload photos, video, etc. We monitor that on our end and follow up on those reports as well, and then many of them have made arrests or connected them to other crimes. So a very valuable tool for our department. I'll stop there. I've got a couple other things I wanted to just mention, but are there any questions on the crime report or any of that information in general? Matt?
Is this the time you wanted to talk about the chop shop, or did you want to wait until the very end?
Well, I don't have, I'll give you the offense report number. You can grab that if you want. We may be doing some more work on that case. I just pointed out because when I noticed that, I'm like, well, we just had this big chop shop, and I think it's a good case that more should have been done, and it wasn't. So we're picking it back up, but I can certainly give you some of the details. Yeah.
Okay, can you say them now, or do you prefer to?
I don't have it. I don't have it in front of me. It's in my head.
All right. Yeah. And you talked about shoplifting. What can you say about that?
Well, we've got. If you go through the beat reports, you can see that there's a couple of retail establishments where a lot of the shopliftings occur in each particular beat area. And it's not necessarily a negative on the store, but there are some things that stores can do to help prevent some of the shoplifting episodes. And, you know, there's a partnership there potentially in the future that we could maybe help work with them and do more to reduce that. But we also know that there's a lot of these people who have been repetitively arrested for shoplifting. And you know, I think the question about are they being fully prosecuted and held accountable is an open question because we're seeing a lot of the same folks involved in that kind of activity. So a two-pronged approach to that, hopefully going forward.
For the general public, what is the purpose of separating a shooting and shots fired? Because I think to the general public, gun violence is the same.
Yeah, it's really not. It's not. And this is best practice across the U.S. Police departments have been doing this for years. There's a big difference between shooting someone and just firing a gun in the air or firing at a house or a car in either some type of terroristic type of intent or trying to intimidate someone. You know, and that's usually indicative of something else is going on versus just random. And then there's folks who just decide from time to time to fire a gun out of the window. And so, while that's all important, it's very different than walking up and shooting someone or actually causing injury. And then, of course, if it leads to death, it's a murder. So we separate it out from that perspective. And then we also investigate all those and utilize our technology to try and correlate. Sometimes we do correlate, not rarely, shots fired evidence with shooting evidence, and we can put those cases together and connect those dots.
Going back to the shoplifting part, is there like a common thing that people are going after, or is it random? Like what kind of stores or items are people really going after?
I don't really have that off the top of my head, but I think if you go online to the beat reports, it'll point out some of those highlights where shoplifting is high in certain beat areas, and it'll identify where a lot of the shopliftings are occurring in that beat. And I think what's taken is probably a variety of things, but I don't know that we have that information.
Could you talk more specifically to what you attribute to the decrease in crime this year, in offenses?
Well, I think the decrease in crime over the last 2 years is, and you know, there's another piece where nationally crime is going down as well. So I think that's, I'm sure, a part of all of it. But a lot of the things that we've done here locally, bringing in a lot of different intelligence, a real-time crime center, which has been a real game changer in terms of our ability to solve crime either faster or solve crime that we may not have even solved previously because of that intelligence information. Our utilization of the traffic safety team and getting them out in terms of traffic enforcement, our community's assistance in a lot of these investigations, and just really good police work in helping to hold people accountable. Because the big thing is, especially with the violent crimes, if we don't have people being held accountable on the prosecution and incarceration side, we're getting them back. And in some cases, I would argue that we are still getting some of them back way too soon. They're coming back into our community, and oftentimes they are reoffending. And so that's an ongoing discussion, I think, with not only our city, but with the legislature and the Department of Corrections, and we're trying to continue to enhance those relationships to add some better tracking for folks who are released and maybe not under supervision back into our community. But I think there's still a large debate in our state even about what's the appropriate jail time and what's the appropriate place to serve that jail time. Sure.
Are there particular policies or minimums that you're looking for that you would like to see enforced more?
I would just like to see, I think I would like to see probably more prosecutions on some of these cases, and I would like to see sentences that were doled out served. And I think what's happening is, and you know, I think there's a case for reintegration into a community for someone who's committed crime, and that's fine. But it seems, at least from our perspective, we're seeing some of the same people way too soon. You know, they have a longer sentence, but they're out in a much shorter time, and then they're involved in other violent incidents. And specifically from that violent crime perspective, I think that more should be done. At least from the state perspective, we have some pretty good success with our federal prosecutor partners, and frankly, when we can take a case federal, we do, because they'll take the case and it'll lead to some significant outcomes.
One quick clarification. So if someone shoots at someone though and misses, still shots fired?
Yes.
Okay. Where are you at with staffing? Has that helped the crime rate go down? Because I know for years, a little while there.
Yeah, no, our staffing is, we're actually fully staffed absent our new 9 positions. We got 9 in the academy right now, so we have to add our 9. Our staffing was actually in a place where we could finally take a big step forward last year. However, because we weren't funded for a second class in 2025, because we actually filled all of our positions, we didn't have a second class. So in that time, of course, you have people retire, leave, etc. And so when you start the January class, we're also trying to fill those positions. So we're, I guess as best I could say right now, kind of even and waiting to add those new 9 in July. But we could have been another step ahead on all of that, and that's just a funding issue. I know we've been working with the city on this budget, but from a sworn position perspective, we got 9 new positions, and the last time we did the analysis was at least a year ago, and we needed like 26 additional sworn positions to put us at 1.6 per thousand. And I'll remind you that the state average and the federal average is 2 per thousand. Our friends over in West Fargo are 2.0 per thousand. I sometimes hear comparables there, and I think it's a good comparable because when you have 2.0 per thousand, you probably can get more done on the safety side. We've been at 1.4 for as long as our records we can look back on. Our city has grown exponentially. Our geography has grown exponentially. Our capacity as a department, without, you know, some of these efficiencies are helpful, but we still need boots on the ground, and we need more boots on the ground at all levels of the department to really keep up and sustain going forward. Our folks do a tremendous job, and they're working a lot, and we'd like to balance that out a little bit, and I think that's a responsibility for the city to address that.
So how many sworn officers are you allowed to have?
201 is our sworn strength right now. Okay, and then just a couple other things I wanted to point out for your interest. One of the 2 other things that we talk about a lot that also is significant in the use of police department resources, overdoses. And I just looked at our 2025 data, and I knew it was higher, but I was kind of shocked when I saw the end result here. We've had the most overdoses in 2025 that we've had in the over 5 years that we have also been tracking this, because this was not tracked previously. But we had a total of 169 overdoses in 2025. 29 of those were fatal. So we focus a lot on violent crime, and that's good. But we still have a significant drug addiction issue. When you have 29 people that are killed in 1 year as a result of an overdose, the year prior was 108, and there's nothing in the last 5 years even close to this 169 number. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And the other thing that we've talked about a lot and continues to be very burdensome on our resources without a great solution are mental health related calls for service. So in 2025, we set another record. 4,353 of our calls for service were mental health related. And in our over-under analysis, we've got 3,668 hours spent amongst a lot of officers, because these often take multiple officer responses, and they can take minimally an hour to much longer, depending on if we're taking someone for an emergency detention or we're trying to deal with this situation and de-escalate it on the street. And so this is, again, a significant issue that seems to have left the conversation table a little bit, maybe after the last legislative session, but we really need some type of valid mental health facility for people with chronic issues, because we have folks in our city, in our area, who have chronic enough issues that they are unable to properly address them on their own. That's something I know that DHS is working on in a sense, but we really need some help with that here in our Fargo area, because our officers deal with this routinely and regularly. Not good for them, not good for the people who suffer from these mental health issues, not good for the community who deals with some of this. And when we talk about fear and crime and all of that, has also an adverse effect on their perception.
On the drug issue, on the overdose issue, are there any specific drugs that stand out?
It's going to be meth and fentanyl, yeah.
Okay. Any demographics around those overdoses?
You know, the demographics almost encompass everybody. Yeah, there really isn't a standout from my quick review and just seeing how this is played out. It's a across the board issue.
And then just going back just a little bit, the increases that we're seeing, overdoses as well, I guess. The shoplifting and the motor vehicle is parts and accessories, not vehicles themselves, right?
Right, and surprisingly, this is, I think, the first time we've ever seen a drop in motor vehicle thefts. I am being
Oh, yeah.
optimistic when I think, I don't know, we've done a lot of messaging on don't leave your keys in the car. So we're hopeful that maybe that had a effect, because I don't think we've seen a motor vehicle theft drop in the 5 years that we've been looking at stats here. So that's encouraging, and that's good, because that is one crime that can really be affected by the owners. And a lot of our stuff's taken with the keys in our cars, or car running rather.
Okay, so with the shoplifting and the motor vehicle parts, are there national trends that are showing increases across the country in those sort of?
Not sure about the national trends, but certainly if you have like a chop shop operation with multiple vehicles that don't have title and some are stolen, and that would tend to lend itself to some type of operation like that, you would think, yeah.
I see, okay, thanks.
Two questions, one on the mental health issue. I remember past city commission meetings, you've talked about it's the same offenders who account for certain. Do you have that stat in front of you? Do you know what stat I'm?
Yeah, I do.
We've talked about it before.
Yeah, usually it's about 15 to 20 folks. I don't have that in front of me, but that has not changed. I mean, there is a core group of people with chronic issues that we continually deal with that just, their issues don't get resolved in the current system. We have a lot of front-end things and in and out and evaluations, but they need more than that.
And regarding overdoses, I mean, what can you do as a police department to try to address that?
Well, it's a partnership. I mean, we really focus on narcotics, and somehow this stuff is still getting into our community and being utilized. So again, just those investigations and that enforcement is one piece of it, but there has to be something significant on the how do you treat addiction side of the house. And again, we know a lot of that is outpatient as well. And I think when you're talking about fentanyl and things that are so physiologically addicting, that the likelihood for someone to go through outpatient treatment and be successful is not a lot. And just because of the physiological addiction. And so I think on the addiction treatment side, we could use a little bit more oomph, if you will. We've been doing the same thing for a long time there as well. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your attendance. Yeah,
Oh, is that the end of the presentation?
yeah, that's the end.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, you can. Yes, sir. Then we'll
I
be
guess,
done.
since we brought up the murders and shootings,
Yep.
I mean, what's the latest on the Azim Holmes case?
That's still being actively worked on. That is a solvable case, but we have a couple more T's to cross before we're ready to take the next step. So as soon as we have an update on that, we'll definitely let you know.
Can you say if you're close to making an arrest, or, and is there difficulties?
I could say that, but I mean, we have a couple things that have to come to fruition and they don't involve us, if that makes sense. We're trying to connect some other dots that involve others to help us get to that point. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.